Angela stood in Anthony's room, her vision blurred by tears as she packed her belongings into a suitcase. Every corner of the room held memories of their love, a love that had now turned bitter and cold. She glanced at Anthony, hoping for a sign, a word, anything that would make her stay. But his indifference was like a dagger to her heart. His words echoed in her mind. "I don't want this baby. Get rid of it." The man she had devoted years of her life to now seemed like a stranger. His coldness was suffocating, and Angela knew she had no choice but to leave. "I thought you loved me, Anthony," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought we were building a life together." Anthony didn't respond. He didn't even look up from his phone. Her tears were meaningless to him now. As she walked out, her suitcase dragging behind her, she paused at the doorway, silently praying he would stop her. But the silence was deafening. He didn't care. Outside, Angela's friends were waiting to help her. They exchanged worried glances, but Angela brushed off their questions with a weak smile. The moment she stepped onto the street, the weight of reality crushed her. She was pregnant, alone, and heartbroken. Cradling her belly, she whispered to her unborn child, "Don't worry, my little one. I'll love you enough for both of us." Angela wandered aimlessly through the streets, her tears flowing freely. She felt lost, both physically and emotionally. The city's bustling noise drowned out her thoughts as she grappled with her next steps. Returning to her parents wasn't an option. They were elderly and fragile, and Angela couldn't bear to burden them with her pain. As she walked, a honking car startled her. She looked up to see a taxi pulling over, and to her surprise, Benedick stepped out. Anthony's cousin had always been kind to her, but she never imagined he would find her at such a low point. "Angela?" Benedick's voice was filled with concern as he approached. "What's going on?" "I just came from Anthony's apartment. He said you left." Angela couldn't hold back her emotions. Sobbing uncontrollably, she told Benedick everything. "I'm pregnant, Benedick, but Anthony doesn't want the baby. He told me to get an abortion. He accused me of trapping him." Benedick's jaw tightened with anger. "That's disgusting. He's a coward, Angela, but you don't need him. You're stronger than this." Angela nodded weakly, her tears still flowing. "I don't know what to do. I don't even have a place to stay." Benedick's expression softened. "Come with me. You can stay at my place. My sister Lena is there too. She'll be happy to have you." Angela hesitated, her pride and independence holding her back. "I don't want to impose, Benedick." "You're not imposing," he insisted. "You're family, Angela. Let us help you." After a long pause, Angela agreed. Benedick's offer was a lifeline she desperately needed. Benedick brought Angela to the modest house he shared with his younger sister, Lena. The cozy home was a stark contrast to the cold apartment she had just left. Lena greeted Angela with warmth and enthusiasm. "You're welcome here, Angela. We'll take care of you." Her kindness brought tears to Angela's eyes, but this time, they were tears of gratitude. The first night in her new home, Angela felt a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. The atmosphere was light and supportive, and Lena and Benedick went out of their way to make her comfortable. The next day, Angela insisted on finding a job. She didn't want to be a burden, and she needed to save for her baby's arrival. Despite her condition, she managed to secure a position as a service crew member at a nearby food stall. The management, sympathetic to her situation, allowed her flexible hours. Life wasn't easy, but Angela felt a newfound strength. She fell into a routine, working during the day and spending evenings with Benedick and Lena. The siblings' unwavering support made her feel less alone. Anthony, however, remained a ghost in her life. Days turned into weeks, and he never called or texted to check on her. Angela began to accept that he would never be the man she once believed he was. One evening, as Benedick walked Angela home from work, he noticed the resilience in her eyes. "You're amazing, Angela," he said. "You're handling this better than most people would." Angela smiled faintly. "I have to be strong. Not for me, but for my baby. I want to give my child the life they deserve, even if it's just the two of us." Unbeknownst to Angela, Benedick's admiration for her was deepening. He saw her as more than just his cousin's ex-girlfriend. She was strong, kind, and deserving of all the love Anthony had denied her. As Angela settled into her new life, she began to see the faint outlines of a brighter future. Her heart still ached, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Angela slowly adapted to her new life in Benedick's home. The modest yet warm environment, filled with kindness and care, offered a sanctuary she hadn't felt in years. Lena was a constant source of support, always ready to lend a hand or offer a listening ear. Each morning, Angela woke early, preparing for her shift at the food stall. Despite her pregnancy, she managed her duties efficiently. The small earnings helped her save for the baby's arrival. Benedick, ever supportive, insisted on walking her to and from work, ensuring her safety in the bustling city. One evening, Angela returned home exhausted but happy. Lena had prepared dinner, and the three of them sat around the table, chatting about their day. For the first time in a long while, Angela felt like she belonged somewhere. "Angela, you're glowing," Lena said one evening. "The baby must be giving you so much strength." Angela placed a hand on her growing belly and smiled. "I think it's more than just the baby. It's having both of you here with me. I don't know how I would have managed without you." Benedick met her gaze across the table, his expression soft. "You're stronger than you think, Angela. We're just here to remind you of that." Though Angela was adjusting well, shadows of her past still lingered. One afternoon, while shopping for groceries, Angela froze in her tracks. Across the aisle stood Anthony, laughing with another woman. His carefree demeanor was a sharp contrast to the heartbreak he had left in his wake. Angela turned away quickly, clutching her basket tightly. She didn't want to confront him or give him the satisfaction of seeing her pain. Instead, she hurried out of the store, her heart pounding. When she got home, Benedick immediately noticed her distress. "What's wrong?" he asked, his tone filled with concern. "I saw Anthony," Angela admitted, her voice shaking. "He was with someone else. He looked so happy, as if none of this mattered to him." Benedick's jaw tightened, his anger evident. "He doesn't deserve to matter to you anymore, Angela. He made his choice, and you've made yours. You're better off without him." Angela nodded, wiping her tears. "I know. It's just hard, but I'll get through this." Later that night, Benedick sat alone, fuming over Anthony's behavior. How could his cousin abandon such an incredible woman? Benedick resolved to be there for Angela, no matter what. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Angela and Benedick deepened. He accompanied her to prenatal appointments, carried her groceries, and even helped her set up a small nursery corner in her room. His actions spoke louder than words, showing Angela a level of care she hadn't experienced before. One afternoon, while assembling a crib that Benedick had surprised her with, Angela couldn't help but laugh. "You're worse at this than I am," she teased as he struggled to attach the final piece. Benedick chuckled, scratching his head. "I never said I was a handyman, but hey, it's the thought that counts, right?" Angela smiled, her heart warming at his effort. "Thank you, Benedick, for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You don't have to," he replied softly, looking into her eyes. "You're family, Angela, and I care about you a lot." Angela felt a flutter in her chest, but she quickly pushed it aside. She wasn't ready to entertain the idea of love again, especially not with Anthony's cousin. Yet, she couldn't deny the comfort Benedick brought into her life. That evening, as Angela lay in bed, she thought about the life growing inside her and the man who had stepped up when the father of her child had walked away. Perhaps, she mused, not all men were like Anthony. For Benedick, every day spent with Angela deepened his admiration for her. Angela placed a hand on her growing belly and smiled. "I think it's more than just the baby. It's having both of you here with me. I don't know how I would have managed without you." Benedick met her gaze across the table, his expression soft. "You're stronger than you think, Angela. We're just here to remind you of that." Though Angela was adjusting well, shadows of her past still lingered. One afternoon, while shopping for groceries, Angela froze in her tracks. Across the aisle stood Anthony, laughing with another woman. His carefree demeanor was a sharp contrast to the heartbreak he had left in his wake. Angela turned away quickly, clutching her basket tightly. She didn't want to confront him or give him the satisfaction of seeing her pain. Instead, she hurried out of the store, her heart pounding. When she got home, Benedick immediately noticed her distress. "What's wrong?" he asked, his tone filled with concern. "I saw Anthony," Angela admitted, her voice shaking. "He was with someone else. He looked so happy, as if none of this mattered to him." Benedick's jaw tightened, his anger evident. "He doesn't deserve to matter to you anymore, Angela. He made his choice, and you've made yours. You're better off without him." Angela nodded, wiping her tears. "I know. It's just hard, but I'll get through this." Later that night, Benedick sat alone, fuming over Anthony's behavior. How could his cousin abandon such an incredible woman? Benedick resolved to be there for Angela, no matter what. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Angela and Benedick deepened. He accompanied her to prenatal appointments, carried her groceries, and even helped her set up a small nursery corner in her room. His actions spoke louder than words, showing Angela a level of care she hadn't experienced before. One afternoon, while assembling a crib that Benedick had surprised her with, Angela couldn't help but laugh. "You're worse at this than I am," she teased as he struggled to attach the final piece. Benedick chuckled, scratching his head. "I never said I was a handyman, but hey, it's the thought that counts, right?" Angela smiled, her heart warming at his effort. "Thank you, Benedick, for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You don't have to," he replied softly, looking into her eyes. "You're family, Angela, and I care about you a lot." Angela felt a flutter in her chest, but she quickly pushed it aside. She wasn't ready to entertain the idea of love again, especially not with Anthony's cousin. Yet, she couldn't deny the comfort Benedick brought into her life. That evening, as Angela lay in bed, she thought about the life growing inside her and the man who had stepped up when the father of her child had walked away. Perhaps, she mused, not all men were like Anthony. For Benedick, every day spent with Angela deepened his admiration for her. Her resilience, kindness, and dedication to her unborn child inspired him. Though he knew he needed to tread carefully, he couldn't help but hope that, one day, Angela might see him as more than just a friend. Angela's days began to feel more settled, but deep down, she was still rebuilding her trust in others. One quiet evening, she sat on the small porch with Benedick, a cup of tea in hand. The stars twinkled brightly above them, and a gentle breeze carried the soft hum of the neighborhood's night sounds. "Do you ever think about the future, Angela?" Benedick asked, breaking the comfortable silence. She took a moment before answering. "I do, but it's different now. My dreams used to include Anthony. Now, I don't really know what to hope for, other than giving my baby a good life." Benedick leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Your baby's lucky to have you. You've been through so much, yet you're still standing." Angela smiled faintly. "I guess I don't have a choice. This little one is counting on me." She placed a hand on her growing belly, her expression softening. As they talked, Angela noticed something in Benedick's gaze, a warmth, a quiet admiration she hadn't seen before. She quickly dismissed it, chalking it up to his naturally kind nature. But a part of her couldn't ignore the flutter it stirred in her heart. Life at the house continued with its usual rhythm, but Lena began noticing subtle changes in her brother. Benedick, who had always been composed and level-headed, now seemed more invested in Angela's well-being than ever before. One morning, as Angela prepared breakfast, Lena leaned against the kitchen counter, watching her. "You know, Angela, Benedick talks about you all the time," she teased with a knowing smile. Angela blushed, shaking her head. "Don't be silly. He's just being kind. He feels responsible for me because of Anthony." Lena raised an eyebrow. "It's more than kindness, Angela. I've known my brother my whole life. He doesn't do things halfway, especially when it comes to people he cares about. Angela paused, her heart racing. Could Lena be right? Was Benedick starting to feel something more for her? That evening, as she helped Lena tidy up after dinner, Angela decided to bring it up. Do you think it's wrong if Benedick, starts seeing me differently? Lena stopped mid-wipe, her smile softening. Angela, my brother's a good man. If he cares for you, it's because he sees the amazing person you are. But the real question is, how do you feel about him? Angela didn't answer. Instead, she found herself lost in thought, wondering if her heart had room for someone like Benedick. Angela's new life faced an unexpected interruption when she received a message from Anthony's mother. The text was simple but enough to stir her emotions. We need to talk. It's about Anthony. Angela debated whether to respond. Part of her wanted nothing to do with Anthony or his family, but another part wondered if this was an opportunity for closure. Benedick noticed her unease during dinner. You've been quiet tonight. Something wrong? He asked gently. Angela hesitated before showing him the message. It's from Anthony's mom. She wants to meet. Benedick's expression darkened. You don't owe her or Anthony anything. After what he did to you. I know, Angela interrupted, but maybe it's time I face them. Not for Anthony, but for me. I need to close that chapter of my life. The next day, Angela met Anthony's mother at a small cafe. The older woman looked tired and remorseful as she greeted Angela. I'm sorry for everything my son put you through, she began. He's made a lot of mistakes, but he's my son, and I can't give up on him. Angela listened quietly, her emotions conflicted. I wanted to ask, the woman continued, if you would consider talking to him. He's not in a good place. I think seeing you might help him. Angela's stomach churned. With all due respect, ma'am, I don't think that's a good idea. Anthony made his choices. He didn't want me, or this baby. I've moved on. Anthony's mother looked down, clearly disappointed but understanding. I just thought, maybe you could help him find his way back. When Angela returned home, Benedick was waiting anxiously. How did it go? He asked. Angela shook her head. She wanted me to talk to Anthony, to help him, but I told her no. I'm not going back to that life, Benedick. I'm done. Benedick exhaled in relief. Good. You deserve better, Angela. You deserve someone who sees your worth and would never let you go. His words lingered in the air, heavier than usual. For the first time, Angela allowed herself to wonder if that someone could be Benedick. Angela's determination to move forward was stronger than ever. Her routine provided a sense of stability, but the emotional wounds Anthony had left were still healing. Meanwhile, her bond with Benedick deepened as he continued to stand by her side. One weekend, Lena proposed a small getaway to the countryside. You've been working so hard, Angela. A change of scenery will do you good, she insisted. Reluctantly, Angela agreed, and the trio packed for a day trip. The drive to the countryside was filled with laughter and music, a stark contrast to the turbulent months Angela had endured. At a scenic hilltop, Benedick surprised Angela with a picnic setup. You need to rest more, he said with a playful grin as he helped her sit on a blanket. Angela was touched by the gesture. As they shared a meal under the open sky, she found herself feeling lighter, even laughing freely. Later, as they watched the sunset, Benedick turned to Angela. I know it's not my place, but I just want you to know, I'm proud of you. You're doing it. Amazing job, Angela, and I'll always be here for you. Angela's heart stirred at his words. She couldn't deny how much Benedick had become her rock, offering her a kind of unwavering support she had never experienced before. Just as Angela was beginning to find peace, life threw another curveball. At work, her manager informed her of a potential restructuring that could lead to layoffs. We'll try to keep as many employees as we can, the manager said, but there are no guarantees. Angela's anxiety spiked. She couldn't afford to lose her job, especially with her due date approaching. She confided in Lena and Benedick that evening. I can't believe this is happening now, Angela said, her voice trembling. "We'll figure it out," Benedick assured her. "You're not alone in this, Angela. We'll get through it together." Lena chimed in. "Maybe it's a sign to rest more. You've been working nonstop, Angela. Let us help you." Despite their reassurances, Angela couldn't shake her worry. That night, she sat in her room, going over her savings and expenses. She needed a plan, but the uncertainty loomed over her like a storm cloud. Just as Angela was grappling with the uncertainty of her job, Anthony unexpectedly showed up at the food stall where she worked. She froze when she saw him, her heart pounding. He looked disheveled, a far cry from the confident man she once knew. "Angela," he began, his voice low, "can we talk?" "I don't think we have anything to discuss," she replied coldly, trying to keep her composure. "Please," Anthony pleaded. "I've made mistakes, big ones. I know I hurt you, but I need a second chance. For us, for the baby." Angela felt a surge of anger. "Us? There is no us, Anthony. You made that clear when you told me to get an abortion and walked away." Anthony looked down, his shoulders sagging. "I was scared. I didn't know how to handle it. But I've changed, Angela. I want to be there for you and our child." Before Angela could respond, Benedick appeared, his expression dark. "She doesn't need this right now, Anthony. If you truly care about her, you'll leave her alone." Anthony bristled. "This is none of your business, Benedick. She's carrying my child." "Then you should have thought about that before abandoning her," Benedick shot back. "Angela has moved on, and she doesn't need your half-hearted attempts to make amends." Angela's voice cut through the tension. "Both of you, stop. Anthony, you don't get to waltz back into my life whenever it suits you. I've built something for myself, without you, and I plan to keep it that way." Anthony looked at her, pain flickering in his eyes, but he nodded. "I understand, but if you ever change your mind, I'll be here." As Anthony walked away, Benedick turned to Angela. "Are you okay?" Angela nodded, though her hands trembled. "I am, thanks to you." That night, Angela reflected on everything. Anthony's return had stirred emotions she thought she had buried, but Benedick's unwavering support reminded her that she wasn't the same vulnerable woman she had been before. And for the first time, she began to see a future where love could bloom again, this time with someone who truly valued her. The days after Anthony's sudden return were emotionally taxing for Angela. Although she had firmly stood her ground, his reappearance stirred memories she thought she had buried. Despite this, Benedick's steady presence became her anchor. One evening, while sitting in the living room with Lena, Benedick returned home from work carrying a small bag. "What's that?" Angela asked curiously. "It's for you," he said with a sheepish grin, handing her the bag. Inside was a maternity pillow. Angela chuckled, touched by the gesture. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," he replied, his gaze warm, "but I figured it might help you sleep better." Lena smirked from her spot on the couch. "You're spoiling her, Ben." Benedick shrugged. "She deserves it." Angela's heart fluttered. She couldn't ignore how deeply cared for she felt in Benedick's presence. It wasn't just his kind gestures, but the way he truly listened to her and respected her boundaries. That night, as Angela lay in bed with the maternity pillow, she found herself smiling. For the first time in a long while, she felt cared for in a way that was unconditional. Angela's life took an unexpected turn when she received a call from an old mutual friend of hers and Anthony's. The friend, Marissa, seemed hesitant but insisted on meeting her. Curious and cautious, Angela agreed. At a quiet cafe, Marissa revealed the truth behind Anthony's behavior. "Angela, I don't know if this will help you, but I think you deserve to know," Marissa began, fidgeting with her cup. Anthony was being manipulated by his parents. They wanted him to focus on the family business and believed a child would distract him. That's why he pushed you away. Angela's heart clenched. "So, he didn't want the baby because of them?" Marissa nodded. "Yes, but that doesn't excuse his actions. He made his choice, and it was a terrible one. I just thought you should know the full story." Angela thanked Marissa for her honesty, but left the cafe feeling conflicted. While it provided some context, it didn't absolve Anthony of his decisions. When she shared the revelation with Benedick later that evening, he listened intently. "It doesn't change the fact that he hurt you," Benedick said firmly. "He still chose to abandon you instead of standing up to his parents." Angela nodded, appreciating his unwavering support. "You're right. I've moved on from needing his explanations. My focus now is on my baby and my future." Benedick had always been a man of action, but as his feelings for Angela deepened, he found himself at a crossroads. Should he tell her how he felt, or would it complicate things between them? One evening, as they walked back from a nearby park, Benedick mustered the courage to speak. The streetlights cast a soft glow on Angela's face, and her laughter at one of his jokes gave him the nudge he needed. "Angela," he began, his voice steady but laced with emotion. She turned to him, her expression curious. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "I've been wanting to tell you something for a while now. I care about you, more than just as a friend. I know this might not be the right time, but I couldn't keep it to myself any longer." Angela stopped walking, her heart racing. "Benedick, I don't expect you to feel the same way," he continued quickly. "I just want you to know that no matter what, I'll always be here for you and the baby." Angela was overwhelmed. She had suspected Benedick's feelings, but hearing them spoken aloud left her speechless. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice trembling. "You don't have to say anything," Benedick replied gently. "I just needed you to know." As they continued walking, Angela's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Benedick had become her safe haven, her constant in a world of uncertainty. Could she allow herself to open her heart to him? That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about all the ways Benedick had been there for her. He had shown her what it meant to be truly cared for, and a part of her couldn't help but wonder if he could be the person to mend her heart. Angela woke up the next morning with Benedick's confession still lingering in her mind. She couldn't deny the impact his words had on her. While her heart was still guarded, there was a sense of warmth and comfort that his love offered, a stark contrast to the coldness she had endured with Anthony. Lena, ever observant, noticed Angela's thoughtful demeanor. "You've been quiet today. Something on your mind?" Angela hesitated, but eventually confided in Lena about Benedick's confession. "And how do you feel about him?" Lena asked, her tone curious. "I don't know," Angela admitted. "Benedick has been incredible. He's been there for me in ways I never expected. But after everything that's happened, I'm scared. I don't want to hurt him or myself." Lena nodded. "It's okay to take your time, Angela, but don't let fear stop you from exploring what could be something beautiful." Later that evening, Angela and Benedick found themselves in the living room, watching a movie. The atmosphere was light, but there was an unspoken tension between them. Finally, Angela broke the silence. "Benedick, about what you said last night," she began. Benedick immediately sat up, his attention fully on her. "You don't have to say anything if you're not ready." "No, I want to," she replied. "I just need time. My heart is still healing, but I do know that you mean a lot to me. I don't want to rush into anything, but I'm open to seeing where this could go." Benedick smiled, his relief evident. "That's all I could hope for, Angela. Thank you for trusting me." As Angela's pregnancy progressed, her life seemed to settle into a steady rhythm. She continued working part-time, preparing for the arrival of her baby and spending time with Benedick and Lena. However, one afternoon at work, Angela noticed a familiar face, Anthony. He was standing at a distance, watching her with an unreadable expression. Her stomach churned. Why was he here? Anthony approached her during her break. "Angela, can we talk?" "Why are you here?" she asked, her tone sharp. "I've been thinking a lot about what I did. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to make things right. I want to be involved in our child's life." Angela clenched her fists. "You had your chance, Anthony. You abandoned me when I needed you the most. Now you think you can just walk back in and play the role of a father?" "I've changed," he insisted. I've cut ties with my parents. I'm willing to prove myself to you." Angela shook her head. "This isn't about proving yourself to me. It's about what's best for my child. And right now, you showing up like this isn't it." As she walked away, she couldn't help but feel a pang of anger and sadness. Why couldn't Anthony just stay in the past where he belonged? When Angela told Benedick about the encounter later that evening, he was visibly upset. "He has no right to disrupt your life like this," Benedick said firmly. "I told him to stay away," Angela reassured him, "but part of me wonders if he'll listen." A few days later, Angela began experiencing early signs of labor. She was at home with Lena when the first contractions hit. "Angela, are you okay?" Lena asked, noticing her wince. I think it's starting," Angela said, her voice trembling. Lena quickly called Benedick, who rushed home from work. They drove to the hospital, and Angela was admitted immediately. Throughout the night, Benedick stayed by her side, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement. "You're doing amazing, Angela. Just a little more." As the hours passed, Angela's pain intensified, but she drew strength from Benedick's presence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the cries of a newborn filled the room. "It's a boy," the doctor announced, handing Angela her son. Tears streamed down her face as she held him for the first time. "He's perfect," Angela whispered, her heart swelling with love. Benedick stood beside her, his eyes filled with emotion. "You did it, Angela. He's beautiful." In that moment, Angela realized just how much Benedick had become a part of her life. He wasn't just her friend or confidant. He was her partner in every sense of the word. As Angela looked at her son and then at Benedick, she felt a surge of gratitude. Her journey had been difficult, but it had led her to this moment, a moment of pure love and hope. Life after the birth of Angela's son, Ethan, was a whirlwind of sleepless nights, constant feedings, and emotional highs and lows. Despite the challenges, Angela felt a deep sense of fulfillment every time she held Ethan in her arms. Benedick, true to his promise, was always by her side. He took on the role of a supportive partner without hesitation, helping with midnight feedings, running errands, and even learning how to change diapers. His dedication didn't go unnoticed by Angela, who often found herself moved by his unwavering commitment. One night, after Ethan had finally drifted off to sleep, Angela and Benedick sat together in the living room. She looked at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you for everything, Benedick," she said softly. "I don't know how I would have managed without you." Benedick smiled, his gaze warm. "You don't have to thank me, Angela. You and Ethan mean the world to me. I'll always be here for you." As their eyes met, Angela felt a stirring in her heart. She realized that her feelings for Benedick had grown deeper, but fear still lingered. Could she truly let herself love again? Just as Angela began settling into her new life, Anthony reappeared, this time more determined than ever. He showed up unannounced at Angela's workplace, catching her completely off guard. "Angela, please hear me out," he pleaded. Angela sighed, frustration evident on her face. "Anthony, I've already told you. I don't want you in my life. You made your choice, and now I've made mine." "I know I messed up," Anthony admitted, his voice filled with regret, "but I've changed. I've been attending counseling, and I want to be a part of Ethan's life. I deserve a chance to be his father." Angela's jaw tightened. Being a father isn't about what you deserve. It's about what Ethan deserves. And he deserves stability, love, and someone who won't abandon him when things get tough. Can you honestly say you can provide that? Anthony hesitated, his silence speaking volumes. Angela shook her head and walked away, determined to protect her son from the chaos Anthony brought with him. When she shared the encounter with Benedick that evening, he was livid. "He doesn't get to waltz back in and disrupt your life like this," Benedick said, pacing the room. "I know," Angela replied, "but part of me is worried. What if he tries to take legal action? What if he tries to claim custody?" Benedick placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "If it comes to that, we'll fight him together. You're not alone in this, Angela. One quiet evening, as Angela rocked Ethan to sleep, Benedick watched her from across the room. He had been holding back his feelings for weeks, unsure if Angela was ready to hear them. But tonight, something told him it was time. After Ethan was safely tucked into his crib, Benedick approached Angela. "Can we talk?" he asked gently. Angela nodded, sensing the seriousness in his tone. They sat on the couch, the soft glow of a nearby lamp casting shadows across the room. "Angela," Benedick began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've been holding this in for a while now. I love you. I love Ethan, too. I want to be more than just your friend or your support system. I want to be your partner, if you'll have me." Angela's breath caught in her throat. Tears welled up in her eyes as she processed his words. "Benedick," she started, her voice trembling. "You've been everything I could have ever hoped for and more. But I'm scared. I've been hurt before, and I don't know if I can take that risk again." "I understand," Benedick replied, his gaze unwavering. "But I'm not Anthony. I would never hurt you or walk away. I want to build a life with you, Angela. I'll wait as long as you need, but I needed you to know how I feel." Angela looked into his eyes, seeing nothing but sincerity. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, she could find happiness again. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted, "but I want to try." Benedick smiled, his relief evident. "That's all I could ever ask for." As they sat together, a quiet understanding passed between them. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. Angela's life began to feel like a balancing act between motherhood, work, and navigating her budding relationship with Benedick. While Ethan brought her immense joy, the looming threat of Anthony attempting to claim a place in their lives weighed heavily on her. One day, while Angela was on her lunch break, she received an unexpected phone call. "Angela, this is Anthony," the voice on the other end said. Her grip on the phone tightened. "What do you want, Anthony?" "I want to see Ethan," he said firmly. "I have a right to see my son." Angela's heart raced with anger. "You don't get to make demands after abandoning us, Anthony. You forfeited your rights the moment you told me to get rid of him." "I've changed," Anthony insisted, "and I'll prove it. If you won't let me see him willingly, I'll go to court." The call ended with Angela's hands trembling. She knew Anthony well enough to realize he wasn't bluffing. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she took a deep breath. She wasn't the same woman who had let him control her. When Benedick returned home that evening, she shared the details of the call. His jaw clenched as he listened, his protective instincts kicking in. "He has no case," Benedick assured her. "You've been Ethan's sole provider since the beginning, and if he tries anything, we'll fight back. You're not alone in this, Angela." Angela nodded, grateful for Benedick's unwavering support. "Thank you, Benedick. I just want Ethan to have a stable, happy life." "You're already giving him that," Benedick said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. A few weeks later, Angela was stunned when she ran into Anthony at the grocery store. He was alone, his appearance disheveled and his expression weary. "Angela," he said, his voice softer than usual. She considered walking away but decided to stand her ground. "What do you want, Anthony?" "I just want to talk," he pleaded. "Please, hear me out." Against her better judgment, Angela agreed to listen, but only in a public setting. They sat at a nearby cafe, where Anthony began to pour out his regrets. "I know I've been a terrible person," he admitted, "but seeing you with Ethan made me realize what I lost. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to make amends, for him, at least." Angela's eyes narrowed. "Making amends doesn't erase the damage you've done, Anthony. You hurt me in ways I can't even describe. And now, you think a few words will fix everything?" "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said, his tone desperate. "I just want a chance to be in Ethan's life." Angela sighed, her heart torn. Part of her wanted to protect Ethan from Anthony entirely, But another part of her knew that denying him the opportunity to know his father could have its own consequences. "I'll think about it," she finally said, standing up to leave. When she returned home, she immediately told Benedick about the encounter. He listened intently, his expression unreadable. "Do you believe he's sincere?" Benedick asked. "I don't know," Angela admitted, "but I feel like I owe it to Ethan to at least consider it." Benedick nodded, though his protective nature made him wary. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you. Just promise me you'll put Ethan's well-being first." "I always do," Angela said firmly. As weeks passed, Anthony began showing up unannounced, asking to see Ethan. Angela, hesitant but willing to give him a chance, allowed brief visits under strict supervision. However, she remained wary, her trust in him far from restored. One afternoon, during one of Anthony's visits, Ethan cried uncontrollably, clearly uncomfortable in his father's presence. Angela rushed to soothe her son, her heart breaking at the sight. "Maybe he just needs time," Anthony said awkwardly. "Or maybe he senses what I already know," Angela replied coldly, "that you're not ready to be in his life." Anthony's face fell, but he didn't argue. That evening, as Angela recounted the day's events to Benedick, he couldn't hide his frustration. "You don't have to keep letting him disrupt your life like this, Angela. Ethan doesn't need him." "I know," Angela said, her voice heavy with emotion. "But I also don't want Ethan to grow up resenting me for not giving Anthony a chance." Benedick sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're too forgiving, Angela, but that's one of the things I love about you." The words hung in the air, and Angela felt her heart skip a beat. She had grown to rely on Benedick in ways she hadn't thought possible. His love and dedication had become a cornerstone of her life. "Benedick," she began, her voice soft, "I think I'm ready to take the next step with you." Benedick's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and joy crossing his face. "Are you sure?" Angela nodded, tears welling up. "You've shown me what real love looks like. I want to build a life with you, for me and for Ethan." Benedick pulled her into an embrace, his emotions overflowing. "You've made me the happiest man alive, Angela. I promise I'll do everything to make you and Ethan happy." As they held each other, Angela felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Despite the challenges ahead, she knew she was no longer alone. With Benedick by her side, she was ready to face whatever the future held. Angela had been carrying the weight of her decisions for months, but now, with Benedick by her side, the future felt brighter than it had in a long time. She had made peace with her past, the pain of Anthony's betrayal slowly fading as she embraced the new life she was building for herself and Ethan. The relationship with Benedick deepened as they grew closer. He had become not only her rock, but also the father figure Ethan desperately needed. Angela knew she couldn't have asked for a better partner to navigate the complexities of life. One evening, as they sat in the cozy living room after dinner, Benedick turned to her with a serious expression. "Angela," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "there's something I need to ask you." Angela looked at him curiously. "What is it?" He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I love you, and I love Ethan. I want us to be a family, legally. Will you marry me?" Angela's heart skipped a beat. The proposal came unexpectedly, but it was the answer she had been longing for. She had known for a while that Benedick was the one for her, and she had no doubts that they could build a life together. Tears welled up in her eyes as she smiled, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Benedick. Yes, I will marry you." Benedick grinned, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You've made me the happiest man in the world, Angela." As they shared a quiet moment, Angela felt a wave of relief and happiness. Finally, she was able to move forward, leaving the past behind and embracing the future with the man who had shown her what true love and support meant. Even as Angela and Benedick began to plan their future together, the specter of Anthony continued to loom in the background. Anthony, despite his earlier promises, refused to let go of his desire for a relationship with Ethan. His persistence was beginning to border on obsession. One afternoon, Angela received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from Anthony's lawyer, notifying her that he was seeking joint custody of Ethan. Angela stared at the letter, her heart pounding in her chest. It felt like a cruel reminder of everything she had been through with him. After all these months of peace, Anthony was once again trying to tear her world apart. She showed the letter to Benedick, her hands shaking. "He's trying to take Ethan from me," she whispered. Benedick's face hardened as he read the letter. "This is ridiculous. He has no right." "I can't believe he's doing this after everything that's happened," Angela said, her voice full of frustration and pain. "I thought he'd finally let go." "I won't let him win, Angela," Benedick said, his tone firm. "We'll fight this. You're not alone." Angela looked into his eyes, seeing the resolve in his gaze. She knew that they would stand together, no matter what Anthony tried. The thought of losing Ethan was terrifying, but she would not give up without a fight. The custody battle that ensued was long, grueling, and emotionally exhausting. Anthony's lawyer fought relentlessly, trying to paint Angela as an unfit mother, while Angela's lawyer worked tirelessly to protect her rights as Ethan's sole caregiver. During the proceedings, Anthony tried to portray himself as a changed man, someone who was now ready to be a father. But Angela knew the truth. She knew he wasn't doing this for Ethan. He was doing it for himself, trying to gain control over her and the life they had built. One afternoon, after a particularly tense court session, Angela sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel as she fought back tears. Benedick was beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder, providing her with the strength she desperately needed. "I can't do this anymore," Angela whispered, her voice breaking. "It's too much." "You don't have to do it alone, Angela," Benedick replied softly. "We'll get through this. I'll be here, every step of the way." Angela turned to face him, her heart filled with gratitude. She didn't know how she would have survived this battle without Benedick's unwavering support. He was more than a partner. He was her protector, her confidant, and her rock. The court case continued for weeks, but finally, the judge ruled in Angela's favor. Anthony was granted limited visitation, but he did not receive full custody. The relief Angela felt was overwhelming. She could finally breathe again. With the custody battle behind them, Angela and Benedick could finally begin planning their wedding and the life they had dreamed of. The weight of the past had been lifted, and they could look toward the future with hope and excitement. On the day of their wedding, Angela stood at the altar, her heart racing as she gazed at Benedick. He looked dashing in his tuxedo, his eyes full of love and devotion. Ethan stood beside them, holding a small bouquet of flowers, and Angela couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion. This was the family she had always wanted. "I do," Angela whispered when it was her turn to speak the vows. Benedick smiled, his eyes glistening with happiness. "I do," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. As they exchanged vows, Angela felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had come so far, from the pain of Anthony's betrayal to this moment of pure joy. She had built a new life, one that was filled with love, stability, and the promise of a future with the man she loved. The reception that followed was filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt speeches. Benedick's family welcomed Angela and Ethan with open arms, and Angela couldn't help but feel grateful for the warmth and support they had shown her. That night, as they left the reception, Benedick took Angela's hand, his smile never fading. "Today is just the beginning," he said, his voice filled with love. "We've been through so much together, and now we get to build the future we've always dreamed of." Angela smiled, her heart swelling with happiness. "I couldn't have asked for anything more, Benedick. You've made all my dreams come true." As they drove away into the night, hand in hand, Angela knew that this was only the beginning of their journey. With Benedick by her side and Ethan in her arms, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they were unstoppable. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy the story. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more delightful stories.